Today at Solus Partners, we're really excited to have Elena with Inhubber. Elena, could you tell us a little bit about your story and how you came up with the idea?
Yes, of course, Stephen. Thanks for the invitation. So, my name is Elena. I'm one of the co-founders of Inhubber and the CEO. And Inhubber actually started with a frustration. So, contracts were slow, overly complicated. You need a lawyer to understand the contract. And I just knew there's a way to make it smarter, to make it more human, a more human way to manage agreements and contracts. So we developed a highly secure way of managing information, a very intuitive way of managing contracts, documents, possibility to sign documents, to sign contracts, to manage deadlines. So actually we made the whole contract management process very simple, very intuitive, and you don't need a lot of softwares to manage contracts like you used to in the past. So now actually with our solution with Inhubber, it's possible to manage all types of documents, all types of contracts with access rights, with total transparency of who is allowed to see what, who needs to complete a certain task, etc. So we actually started as a research project at Humboldt University of Berlin, which is kind of a big university here. And we decided we want to make a highly secure way of managing information, because it was kind of an assumption we made that also no one will trust their contracts to store on a software as a service, on a kind of new company would provide. So we said we want to make it as secure as possible. And back 2019, when we started, maybe you remember Bitcoin was kind of a hype with the blockchain technology in the background. So Inhubber has nothing to do with Bitcoin, but we use the blockchain technology behind it for encrypting the data, which makes us a very uniquely secure solution for contract management. So that's basically the journey. So now we are operating, we have large customers, small, medium-sized enterprises, but also public sector using us, mostly in Europe. And so that's basically it.
It's very helpful, and congratulations on the launch. It sounds like it's going really well.
Yeah, thanks.
And now, granted, that secure approach using blockchain to have a better software and AI-enabled document management system is really intriguing. Imagine it's intriguing for both enterprise and then even down kind of the smaller owner-operators of businesses. How are you guys gaining traction across different channels and different organizations of different sizes?
What do you mean by interaction?
How are you getting the message across or the marketing across to different size groups? Like, are you approaching enterprise differently than like small business?
Yeah, of course. So it's a totally different approach. So it's more personalized approach when it goes to direction of enterprises, because there you have such kind of established processes where you actually need to look into the real details in order to find the right solution. So our software as a service solution is actually, it can be used as it is. But of course, when we talk to enterprises, we need to look at the processes which already exist and how we can actually optimize these processes digitally with help of our solution. Because we say it makes no sense to stick to the old ways, but just make it digital. Let's say you have a strict requirements, like bureaucratic ways of managing information, managing the review or approval processes and signature processes, or managing like the way a contract is negotiated and signed. We actually, when it comes to larger, to enterprises, we do look into the details. We see which steps we don't need anymore, right? Because it becomes digital, it becomes more transparent. So with the digital solutions, the transparency which you needed to show on paper and going like from one employee to another to agree that I do agree with this kind of negotiation or with this clause. So putting it all in the digital processes, it becomes much more visible, much more transparent, and of course faster at the end. And we also have startups as customers. And then again, there's a totally different kind of approach, because here we need to think maybe about a merger and acquisition, maybe about an exit. So it's more like exit-oriented way of managing data, managing contracts, being able to maybe extract the information documents which you need to show to potential investors easily, fast. And so depending on the niche and the industry, of course, it's always a different approach.
Fascinating. Well, that makes sense in terms of the comparing and contrasting from the startups to the enterprises, and obviously needing a little bit more of a guided approach with startups more oriented towards the exit, and then relative to the enterprise where there's probably some more established processes in place that you can streamline. So that's really helpful. In regards to kind of the enterprise use case, what are some of the features or just the methodology of using Inhubber, and how are people or customers benefiting from that?
Talking about enterprises, each enterprise has its own topics, its own processes which need to be optimized. It's kind of very individual. We have use cases. Let's say there's a process of a contract is being uploaded, and then depending on the type of the document, whether it's a contract, maybe it's an NDA, certain people have to be involved into the approval process. Maybe some data has to be changed. You have to manage the NDA. Maybe someone has to sign it. So there's always this kind of procedure of who needs to do what, after whom, and who is the final decision maker, or maybe few people, and to provide this total transparency solution of whether everyone has actually done what he was supposed to do. Talking about AI, that's the topic, I would say, of today. Again, what used to be quite complicated, like, for example, compliance checks or checking contracts on specific risks, now became so much easier with help of AI. And what I usually say, like, the biggest challenge is actually to have all data centralized in one place, all contracts centralized in one place, because a lot of challenges start because there's no transparency. There's a message of information, and having a transparent, secure, central repository of contracts, which there are within a large enterprise, helps already so much. And I would say that's the number one step for each company, to have the central way of managing all the information. Because once you have it, you can use AI in a way that it can analyze like specific documents, specific contracts, but also the whole amount of contracts, and tell you which contracts are the most risky, which clauses you should actively take a look at, which contracts are not compliant with the current regulation system. Because these are topics of every company. Doesn't matter if it's large or small. Having the central overview across all information gives you the possibility to actually create this kind of, how we know it, ChatGPT, and being able to ask any question, because AI can use this whole database, everything you have, in a compliant, so in our case, in a GDPR compliant, secure environment, and actually give you valuable hints, show you risks, and give very concrete suggestions on what should be maybe renegotiated, which contracts should be canceled. And
it makes a lot of sense. It's cool that you guys are able to provide that AI level insight, both kind of on the aggregate, but then also within just the specific process. What, in terms of potential advice for founders or people that are interested in AI that are listening or watching the podcast, what is the best way that you found to approach enterprise or public sector or startups just to get the word out about maybe the startup or the company they're working for?
yeah, so all this kind of types of companies or organizations are so diverse. So when it comes to startups, it's, like easygoing. You go to maybe events, you meet people, and you understand, yeah, it makes sense. Or you can, I don't know, use LinkedIn to write, to chat, to connect. There are like a lot of postings from different startups. So you can use this channel to interact with startups. When it comes to enterprises, you have so many decision makers, so many departments. So there it's kind of, when talking about startups, like it's more a broad approach, like you just, spread the word and try to get as many as possible, like as many startups as possible. So here in the enterprise sector, you would need to choose one enterprise you're interested in and try to find as many people as possible who might be decision makers, and try to convince that you offer the right solution. And public sector, again, that's a completely another story, because here you have some actors which are on social media, which you can actually kind of get in contact on usual digital marketing ways, but there are also some where you really need to find creative ways of how to speak to certain peoples. Maybe events would be here the approach to go. So really, like depending on the industry, is a really completely different approach.
I think that curated approach and advice and perspective around that makes sense, and I think will be helpful for a lot of people, myself included. So thank you. When it comes to your team, obviously you guys have something that's very innovative, highly secure. How are you able to find the team members to help build this?
So actually, we never use agencies, like to find people. We post it ourselves and on LinkedIn, on different platforms. Actually, also, I don't remember the name, but there's a platform where you can actually post it through various on various platforms automatically, but it's kind of free of use. And so that's the usual approach we do. And we do, and also very concrete, like if we think someone would match our values, our beliefs, we do write directly on LinkedIn and ask if he or she would be interested to join. So it's more kind of very direct approach of finding the people we would like to interview and to get on the team.
It makes a lot of sense. How big is your team today?
We are 13 people right now.
That's awesome. So where do you see, obviously you guys have a lot of different paths in front of you, but call it over the next maybe 12 to 18 months, what regions or what types of companies are you looking for to grow into or approach?
I mean, it's quite diverse. Also now we have companies from real estate, e-commerce, IT, software, public sector, enterprises. So it's actually, we keep on going, the approach we had until now, because in a way, it's a mission. It's a mission to help companies grow through digitalization. Yeah. And we say who is not moving fast enough right now, especially what we see with the evolvement of AI, how fast everything is happening right now. Yeah, we help kind of companies to scale with help of Inhubber.
Fascinating. Well, I imagine you guys save a lot of paperwork and just paper volume in your solution.
Exactly. And we help to make faster decisions. We help to show, like the financial details behind contracts, which contracts are maybe the most valuable, the most risky, and maybe there's another provider where you could get the same, like product or service for much less. And so that's what we actually show. Yeah, where are the possibilities to actually get better conditions, to renegotiate? Where are the risks hidden behind which contracts. Yeah, so actually what we say, contracts are like the heart of a company. And if you know your contracts, you actually know how your company is doing. And we provide this transparency regarding your personal company. How is your company doing? Well, what can you do to maybe make it more healthy, so to say? Yeah, where does it hurt, and what can be done in order to heal this?
I mean, that's really cool AI-enabled insight that you guys are able to provide. It sounds like a very granular level.
Yeah.
When you think of kind of the journey up to this point, obviously starting from 2019 through today, what have been some of the highs and lows of that journey?
I mean, at the beginning, it's convincing the first customers. To trust what I was mentioning before. We already expected it. That's why we decided to make it as secure as possible. But even if you make it secure as possible on the side of the contracts you're managing, for the company, it's not only the security of the contract, but it's also the security. How much can I trust this company, the people behind the company, that I don't know, after 2, 3, 4 years, the company still exists. Because of course, it's kind of risky. You upload your contracts, you invest time, but then from statistics that some startups don't make it, they close, and what happens to the contracts, etc. So that's kind of a low on the journey, especially at the very beginning. But even today, sometimes we talk to large enterprises and they are very satisfied with the solution, but then say it's still a risk for them compared to maybe someone who exists for 20, 30 years, even so we exist already for over 5 years on the market. So it's always kind of this challenge, I think, every startup is facing to convince especially the first customers, but then also very large enterprises. So that's the tricky part. And it's at the end, it's about the belief. Belief that in people, because you never know. Even like a company which exists for 20 years, you don't know what happens tomorrow. But these are kind of the challenges, I would say. Of course, challenges of finding investment, finding investors who believe in you, in the company, in the product, and who share similar values to you, who don't kind of have a totally opposite view. And talking about apps, of course, again, customers, like when large companies, like, for example, in Europe, known OECD or Rebuy, Appetito, like some of customers which are known in Europe mostly. So these are highs, of course, like to convince, to show that we are the solution. We are a very simple in use, but very secure and very efficient way of managing information, managing documents. Then, of course, recognition from outside. So we got also some first places in competitions. So, for example, recently we were selected as, we received the first prize from the Minister of Economy in Germany, in Berlin. So that's, of course, a high, and which makes us also proud and happy. Yeah. So of course, you need both at the end. You need the challenges to become better, and you need the highs, like to continue at the end. To continue and to continue growing.
Well, for fellow founders that are scaling, have the challenges, obviously, I would imagine that they've changed over time, but how has that evolved for you guys at a high level?
You mean the challenges we were having? How did it change over the time?
Right,
That's
yeah, like
yeah.
at the start relative to today, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, of course, they are completely different from, 5 years ago. 5 years ago, it was really like the first customer ever. Like, how do we get him? How do we convince someone? And we didn't have a network in Germany. So it was completely cold customer. We got someone we didn't know, which needed to convince with our solution. And at the end, it was a royal escort from UK. Maybe it's a famous horse riding with the heads, and where the queen is invited. So it's kind of a crazy cool first customer we got. Yeah. So the very initial challenges are kind of to find this first customers, to convince, and to have this kind of a base which makes the solution even more trustable. And at some point of time, then there was a COVID challenge, yes, which one would say, you offer a digitalization tool. It's actually, like it makes you grow. But for a lot of companies, it was such a challenge, the whole situation, that no one actually thought about finding, like a software straight away. It was more about how do we survive. So also for us, it was a challenge, of course, because it changed our life so much, from meeting in the office to being separated in the, especially at the beginning for a startup. I think it's important to exchange, to meet, to see each other, to get to do brainstorming. And so that was definitely a challenge. At some point, we needed to find investment, and it was exactly during the time when the war with Ukraine started, and it was another challenge. No one expected it. So a year before the war was kind of easy way of getting investments, maybe you remember. And exactly when we started kind of fundraising, it was during the war. And I also have a Russian background. I do have a German citizenship, but I was born in Russia. So it was also a challenge, not just that the Ukrainian war was kind of putting the whole world upside down, in my view, in Europe at least. Then it was, like we looking for funding and our kind of Russian background. So that was definitely a challenge as well. So as you see, like the challenges always change. It's a time of,
Probably some good growth.
Yeah, pros, exactly.
Well, I mean, hats off to you for navigating all those rapids and challenges. Not an easy feat. And the fact that you guys are succeeding in that endeavor, I think, is a true testament to your team and what your mission is.
Yeah.
Now, kind of looking ahead even further out, where would you say is kind of like the big milestone or the goal for the next 3 to 5 years for Inhubber?
Yeah. So become worldwide famous.
Yeah.
in the world of companies, enterprises. So to be the user-friendliest way of managing data. Yeah. Because like also over the time, I realized this user-friendliness is actually a number one priority. Of course, security in the background, because if it's not secure enough, like you can't actually use it. Yeah.
Right. It's table
But that's
stakes.
kind of the background. It has to be user friendly because we know so many stories of companies acquiring like large, I don't know, also famous software solutions, but then it's so complicated, no one really wants to use it. They spend so much money. It's not that it only doesn't bring anything to the company, but it also, like doesn't make the company effective, efficient. It's not just the loss of this resources, but it's a loss of so much time. That's why I say yes, a very user-friendly way of managing contracts and to be
It makes a lot
also
of
to
sense.
expand also to US after a few years.
There you go. Yeah, then you'll be truly global, at least from Europe and the US perspective. And then I
Yeah.
imagine you've got your eyes towards Asia as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Very exciting stuff. What, I guess, kind of leading into that customer acquisition and growth plan, what are some ways, or the best way maybe, for interested parties to get in touch with your team to learn more, or potentially explore demos or the solution as it works?
Yeah. So the best way is over our website. You can book a demo with us and just look at the system, look at to get to know how to use it. And yeah, that's the best way.
Because I imagine it can work in every industry at any scale. So it's truly
Exactly. I mean, usually like when the company is just, it's a very, very beginning, like there's no real need. But on the other side, as sooner you start using it, as easier it is in the future, because of course you need to upload, you need to kind of gather this information. If you start using it from the beginning, you have it all there. It's actually like from the really small companies just in the initiation phase till the enterprises. It's very scalable. It's very effective in a way. And yes.
well, and having worn the investor hat in prior roles, I think to have a centralized body of contracts that then has further analytics on what those contracts say would just be a golden nugget that I don't think I've never seen something like it. So hats off to you guys for making it.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for your time today, Elena. This has been really insightful, and I think that you and your team at Inhubber are really onto something here. So this is very exciting.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen, for the invitation. And yeah, have a wonderful day.
You too.